Rice cultivation in Guyana has two crops annually. These two crops have to supply both local and international markets all year round. That is why farmers take much pride in their crop, from land preparation to harvesting. In this episode of The Science of Rice, we learn more about the time of harvesting, drying and cleaning of paddy for both seed production and milling purposes. This program is brought to you by the Guyana Rice Development Board and aims to educate you on the step-by-step process of rice cultivation in Guyana.
The first thing that will come to mind, or that a farmer will take, is when to harvest. Each variety has a different time of harvest. I mean, the duration of each variety is different. For example, we know rustic would be 105 days. So after 105 days, we could go and harvest. The crop normally comes in at 105 days. That's the opportune time to harvest that variety. Whereas GRDB 10 maybe 107, 110 days. GRDB 12 might be 115 days. So each variety, the farmer will have to know from the researchers and the extension officer and via we have a lot of booklets going around on each variety, the various characters. But in case the farmer is not aware of all these here, there is a simple rule of thumb that we use, and even in research. Once your crop has been flowered, 100% flowering, you add 30 to 35 days depending on the weather condition, and that will be the opportune time of harvest for that crop. So if the crop finish flowering at 180 days, you add another 30 days, 35 days, or 120 days, you go and harvest. And most of the crop would complete flowering in Guyana like 180, 85 days. In the extreme, in the case of the aromatic and so, the one it will go finishing around 80 days.
While the countdown to harvesting begins from the flowering stage of the crop, the physical aspect will also be visual to the naked eyes as the crop ripens.
When you make the physical judgment on the field, because you have done your calculations that you know your crop will come in maybe the 20th of June or July, whatever the case may be. You have an idea when you're going to harvest, but still you have to keep abreast of what's happening on the crop. So once you go and you see, well, that time that I'm telling you will coincide with the time when the crop is started to get 80 to 85 to 90% of the crop will start to get a bit brown, and the grains will be very hard and not very brittle at that time. Will be hard, and you still will see a few green plants in the field. That is the time, maybe around, if you harvest at that time, you'll get around 3 to 5% of green grains. Close to 90% of the grain, 90-95% of the grain has been mature and it's already brown hard and ready to harvest. The color, you'll see, it will change. The plant itself will change its color and start to senesce and start to get dry up and change from a greener color to a more brownish color. That is the time when we say that's the opportune time for harvest.
When the crop shows this physical characteristic, it is ready to be harvested. However, farmers should heed the purpose of the crop, whether it is for milling or seed production. If the purpose of the crop is for seed production, then the crop has to be harvested earlier, while the moisture content is reasonably high. This simply means that the grain is not dry and hard, but still has some amount of moisture within.
The moisture may be around 18 to 20%. That will coincide with a moisture around 18, 20, 22% moisture. We have to remember that the rice, the grain, it is a living entity. And once the plant starts to senesce and the plants go into that state, if the purpose is for seed, we have to harvest that as early as possible. So those farmers and those of us, even seed growers who are going to harvest with seeds, it is better you get the crop out as early as possible with the high moisture, and this is quite unlike what our farmers will think, with 17, 18, 20% moisture, and dry it slowly to reach around 13, 14% moisture. This is the best for seed. This is the point in time where you could more rescue or give total care for that seed which is intended, or that life which is intended for sowing the other crop. If you leave it on the plant and it starts to weather, the plant will start dry up. It is left there in normal to weather, to absorb moisture, to release moisture, the heavy sun, and so many things. So at that point in time, we are recommending for seed you harvest. And when you harvest, you will have to, for the purpose of seed, you will start drying within 24 hours. And you continuously dry to around 13, 14% moisture. Similarly, if you are going for the purpose of milling, we would not want to harvest at a very, very low moisture, meaning 14, 15% moisture, because at that time, once it starts going less than 16, you will start finding the grain become more hard and brittle. And it started to crack and so on. And if you go beyond the time of harvesting, you will find that the grain will start to deteriorate. So you'll have more broken grains when you go for milling. So that is so crucial to harvest at an appropriate time. So you have the best from the crop. For seed, you take that seed and you store it in a nice way, and for milling, you take it and you treat it in such a way that you could have maximum milling returns.
After harvesting, the seeds must be dried within 24 hours. This can be either sun-dried or mechanically dried. Harvesting for milling purposes can be done at a later date when the grains are much harder and at a low moisture rate. However, farmers should not wait too late to harvest, since grains can become too dry, brittle, and can have more broken grains when milling. Harvesting is done mechanically in Guyana. The operator has to be careful in the field as the combine harvester maneuvers around the crop to avoid damages and unnecessary losses in grains during threshing.
The proper setting of the machine is very crucial. You have to start by cutting because when you harvest there, the farmer have to get back into the next crop. So you don't want to cut too much of the combine, don't want to cut too much of it, leave too much of the stock into the field. That will be easier for the combine operator to just harvest the grains at the top, just a little down and go. But you'll have to set the combine to suit the farmer also, because he would want to cut as low as possible so that you don't have much stubble left in the field to deal with. So the setting of the combine is very important, not in terms of the up and down, but also in terms of the thrashing system and so on. If it is not thrashing well and it's not, I think you will have more shell grains and so on, more grains left on the straw and so on. So the setting of the combine is very crucial for you to gather most of the seeds that you have produced. And that has been quite a little issue in some areas, in some farms. But farmers very smart. They themselves will check the combine once it starts running to ensure that they have good thrashing, and that's very crucial.
The combine harvester cuts and separates the grains from the plant straw. This is known as thrashing. While the setting of the combine plays an important part in harvesting, the weather too is equally as important. In this case, the sun is a farmer's best friend when harvesting. This is so because if the plants are wet in the field, it will be too soft for the combine knife to have a clean cut. And threshing is even worse to handle during this climatic condition. But once the sun is up and the combine is set, harvesting can be done effectively and grains can be transported to their final destination. Rice is in demand all year round and storage is vital because there are only 2 crops per year. After harvesting, the paddy has to be dried and cleaned before storage. For seed production purposes, much care must be given to the grains to help them germinate and develop good vigor.
If you're drying and, well, I will say handling and drying is not done properly, you could not have good germination, so you're not going to have a good establishment. And some farmers will know for starting, once you don't have good germination, there's no point even sowing the seeds. Secondly, if it is not handled properly, and at some point in time, it is probably the moisture is not gone to a safe level, maybe 13-14% moisture, or if it is while harvesting and handling, excess moisture from rain comes in and you have not covered it properly, or you have left it for 2 days before you start drying, and you may have good germination, mean 80-85% moist germination, which is recommended for sowing. That's good. But once that seed lot get into the field, you may have excellent germination, but you will not have good vigor for that plant to emerge in our condition. And vigor is it's very important in Guyana. It's actually we tend to underestimate the real value of good vigor. But it's very clear that you could have good germination and you don't have good vigor to bring out the crop to have a good establishment. And once you start, we know that for a fact, once you start the crop on a bad footing, meaning you don't have good establishment, the farmer have to do catching up all the time. You're never the head of the game. And the idea of the rice, you have to be ahead of the game. If you are back, you will always be at the back.
Vigor is simply the rate of growth and stamina of the seedling growing under harsh conditions.
If the grain is not dried properly, you'll have, because it's a living entity, as I said, so it will be producing heat all the time. So that heat build up is excellent for the growth of mold and proliferation of insects and so on. So these will cause deterioration of the grain.
Drying paddy for milling purposes is essential also because too much moisture can affect the milling process, causing the grains to damage.
If the grain is not properly dried and you go for milling, then you will not have excellent milling in terms of all the grains being milled. If you have too much moisture, all the grains will not be milled. And if the moisture is too low, then you will have a high percentage of broken grains. So it is even more, is not as crucial as the case of seed to have excellent drying. And the drying in for milling purpose have to be even more carefully watched, because you cannot drastically reduce the moisture from 18 to 14. It has to be a gradual process.
Drying paddy for milling purpose is essential also because too much moisture can affect the milling process, causing the grains to damage. But over-drying too can result in the same damages. This is what the chief scientist recommends.
Many farmers will tell you those seeds that are dried in open air and sunlight, you have excellent germination and vigor. They will tell you that. Yeah, so there's nothing wrong with that. The only little difficulty you may have is that you have to, the weather condition must permit. And sometimes it's bad weather while harvesting, and it's not possible to have a uniform drying. You have some rains in between that could pose some problem. But generally it's very, very cheap, it's very effective, and it's good.
If farmers are sun drying their paddy, they have to harvest the crop the least at 16% moisture. The grains are spread across a flat dry surface in full view of the sunlight. It remains there for about 5 hours, turning occasionally. The aim of drying the paddy is to achieve 14% moisture.
Once you reach 14% moisture, that moisture content will be sufficient, right? The seed will be safe for roughly about another 3 months, and they only need it for another month or two. So 14% drying is often good enough in Guyana.
Mechanical drying of paddy is a more convenient way of drying paddy in large amount and requires less manual labor.
These dryers are fully computerized and designed strictly for grain, for seed purpose. These dryers, the capacity one is dry 150 bar, 160 bar. This is 2 10-ton dryer. Here where all the paddy dries. Depends on the moisture and the temperature. So after finishing this process here, after finish drying to the require moisture content, we unload these dryers into the cleaning process. They're this way. This is the next hopper where the dryer unload into the cleaner. So from here, you will go through the cleaning process. The cleaning process basically is vibration and wind. Go in the pre-cleaner, this way right here, the pre-cleaner, we will extract wind, half grain, damaged grain, so a few cut straw, maybe in, we'll extract from this process here. This machine we call a pre-cleaner. From here, we'll go to the separator. It's a gravity separator, which also take out whatever remain we pass on this pre-cleaner. We remove over there, which you're going to find strictly damaged grain, which are unfilled grain, half grain, may get a little rice, may shell due to harvesting. That will remove from the second machine over there, where is the gravity separator, and from there where you get your final product into the storage bin. And from there we will bag, like you see here, label, and store to other facility. But most importantly, we're dealing with variety here. And we should let you know that after each variety, we clean this whole system truly, inside and out, to avoid any contamination. So each variety has been treated equally. Here is the receiving bin. After the paddy has finished all the process, come into this bin. This bin here, we get a fully automatic scale that we fill the bag, it works fully automatic. We hangs on the bag and it weighs 140 pounds, accurate. So from this scale, then we label the bag, stitch the bag, and store the bag over here. From here, then, like I said, take it to other facility for storage, for dormancy.
If the paddy is being stored for a prolonged period, you might want to achieve a lower moisture percentage than 14%.
When we storing germplasm for material for over years, we go as low as 8%, 9% moisture. So there is nothing wrong in going down. What you're doing is slowing down the activity of the rice. You're slowing it down and you avoid the fungus to come in and insect and so on, because they need a certain amount of moisture to work on.
Achieving the right moisture content is one task, but when it comes to storage, farmers have to take necessary precautions against pests and fungi.
If you don't store properly, the grain will always pick up moisture. So if it is in an area that moisture is being, it is exposed to moisture, it will pick up moisture. And it will try to find an equilibrium between the outside moisture and the grain moisture, and the moisture level of the grain will rise. And that is not good for seed. The surrounding air, it must be clean, it must be free flowing and so on. For the purpose of seed. Similarly, for the purpose of milling, you'll have to ensure that they are stocked well, just in the case of seed, and you have free flowing air. And if you're going to store for some period of time, ensure that it is treated and the surrounding is clean from weevils and all that, so you could have the best. Because if it is, you allow infestation, then within a month you could lose almost everything.
After we have finished the drying and cleaning process, we transport the paddy from the seed process to the storage facility, which is where we are here right now. So here is where we store the paddy here for follow-up tests, determine our germination, our other grade samples, so to make sure that this seed have reached the seed standard that GRDB have. So farmer in the whole have the benefit of the doubt. And most importantly, we want to stress our moisture content. These seed here are stored with 12.5% moisture.
Whether for seed paddy or milling, drying and storage is very important. Once farmers and millers follow these simple steps, they both can benefit more financially. That's all for this week's program. Do remember to join me next week, same time, same place, for another edition of The Science of Rice. Do enjoy the rest of the night and have a productive week ahead. Goodbye.